Second notice of motion, Councillor Goff and Councillor Henstock about the Norwest Arc MCR.
Hey, just before it's moved and seconded, Mr Mayor, Councillor Moore asked if the mover and seconder could consider an addition to it, but I understand standing orders requires the meeting to approve the addition of that, and it would just be a 3, notes its commitment to the completion of the Norwest Arc major cycle route. Mm-hmm. So you might have to ask if the council is comfortable for us to include that. Well, I'm quite comfortable. It's the advice that I got.
So since
Take it up, Katie.
Since this is a notice of motion that's been put forward, any amendments made have to be done with the agreement of the meeting at large. Once it's moved and seconded, no further amendments can be made.
Okay.
So you've got to ask if the meeting is comfortable with that.
Is the meeting comfortable to have that yellow bit put in?
Yeah. Does it need 75% or?
Okay. So, okay, now hang on. We're getting out of gear. Things are going. We've been down very well.
So that can be included.
So is everyone happy for that yellow bit to be included?
Yes, that's the majority.
That's the majority, right? She's in. Okay. Would you like to present it, please, James?
I actually think it's pretty straightforward, and in the interest of time, could I just reserve my right of reply and see?
Okay. Any other questions of it? Councillor Skin?
Sorry, Mike.
Apologies there, those overseas. Hope the casino's good, but you won't get there. With regards to if this did not go ahead, could the money be used in other areas by other councillors with their local projects? Well, it's been asked by a number of people, and I'm just thinking I may as well jump in there as well, because I've got a few needs and I'm going to grab the money. But obviously I could ask. Sorry.
I think that's a no.
No, okay. With it, correct.
Okay.
I've got a question of staff.
The CE has a question of staff.
So, and I should know this, so I apologise that I don't. Would this need to go back to the hearings panel?
I believe it would, yes.
Just wanted to check.
That's what this is asked for, a report on the process, so that's what that will tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if that passed, this is not, so this notice of motion is not requesting the change, it is requesting a report on the process to change.
Because I understand we weren't allowed to ask for it to be changed. We had to ask for the process to change.
Correct.
So that's why it's like it is, from what I'm told.
And it returns on the
Okay.
15th.
Righto. So we're still doing questions. Councillor Cotter.
Kia ora, Mayor. So this is requesting this as a report by the 15th of November, which is not actually very far away. Bearing in mind the work that you've just been given to come up with report on notifying road closures, is it going to be a stretch for you to get this work done by then, and who will do it?
To be fair, I'm sitting here answering the questions for you today, but the governance teams are probably the ones, and legal teams are the ones that are likely to be hitting that report. So they've agreed that there's time to do it, unless Helen disagrees with me. My apologies.
Okay, it's more work anyway. And my other question is, I think I've read it correctly that option B was explored quite in detail through the hearings panel process, and the consultation was around that, and there were people that fed back on that at the time, correct?
Yes, that is correct, and we've put that in the staff advice, the feedback that was provided.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a mover and seconder, and now we'll go into debate. Any who would like to kick that off? Councillor Kewen.
So as a local community board member for this area, we've obviously had tons of feedback on this right from the start. A number of people down there aren't opposed to the cycleway. In fact, they're quite encouraging, especially the church groups. You heard from them this morning. They just prefer that this was put on the widest berm in the city rather than down the road and taking out the car parks for the people that need to use them. So if we want cycling to be more popular, more people take it up, we need to work with our communities. And when a particular community stands up and says they don't like something, I think I heard recently people say that we should listen to them and work with them. And so let's vote that way. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Cotter?
Kia ora, Mayor, thank you. Look, I can fully appreciate how people think that this might be a better option, but my reason for not supporting this today is because basically it is way too late in the process, and the cost and the energy which would be consumed in pausing this is a big worry. We're a can-do council. This has already been through consultation, through a hearings panel which did explore option B. People had the opportunity then, and there were reasons clearly outlined why option A was the one selected here. And I believe that the Kaingaora development there has only added numbers to the street, which actually supports option A even further, because a shared path is not the best practice, it's not the ideal, it's the one that you use when you really don't have any other option.
It's not shared.
Well, with the one you want to put on the berm.
Separated.
It's not debate.
It's a separate cycle path on the berm.
Right, sorry.
Oh, sorry, okay, I stand corrected. But I just basically, my premise is it's too late in the process. This has gone way too far. And it's going to be commencing in, I think it was December. So you've got to appreciate all the front-loaded work that goes into these projects before you get to that point. It's almost, I think, at a point of no return now. So I just think this is way too late to interrupt the process, so I won't be supporting it today.
Okay, Councillor Peters.
Thank you. I tend not to agree that it is too late. This hasn't been constructed yet, so until the digger's in the ground and they're actually building the option that's been passed, it's not too late to make a change. So, I mean, I've seen examples in my community where major cycle routes have gone through. The community hadn't felt listened to through the process. They got what they didn't want, where they didn't want it. To see another community have the opportunity to, at the last minute, get this changed to something that's more beneficial to their community, I think is well worth having a go at. And hearing the options on how that could be done is, I think, wisdom. As a council, we need to be listening to our communities and trying to take them on the journey, and rather than thrusting a cycleway into their front doors that is going to disrupt their lives, let's see if we can take them on the journey and give them an asset that they can all be proud of and work with and use on a regular basis. So let's try and get this right. Let's try and get it built right the first time and get it sorted.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fields.
However we vote on it, I don't think that this is it's definitely not a pro or anti-cycleway thing. It's not about climate change. It's not about ideology. There are reasonable arguments on both sides. I think, I like to think I'm a reasonable person. So, as we're going on the journey to sort of exceptional city status, we have to sort of think about all these things from both angles, the stadium, good movement of traffic, good routes for cycling. So, there are always good arguments on both sides. I think the main issue I have on this is that it's really come out of nowhere. According to the deputation we had this morning, it sounds like it's been percolating for a while. But I heard the same yesterday that it's been percolating for a while. So I'm like, oh, great. Well, thanks for letting me know. Because the first I heard of it was when it came in on the agenda. And, what about no surprises? What about us all, going along on a journey together? So I'm kind of sympathetic for the arguments, but I don't really like the way it's been gone about. It seems completely back to front. Looks like we're trying to do something common sense, but it's not really common sense, because there's nothing common sense about disrupting the work program of staff who are under immense pressure. And I understand that people want to do things differently, which is why I'm a fan of what we did with Park Terrace, right? Great, let's innovate, let's apply what we've learned. But this doesn't seem to be a way to achieve that. It seems like we're trying to bog bogging something down in bureaucracy because it suits you to do that. So I won't be supporting the notice of motion, but I do implore us to work together and figure out solutions that work for our city, that are cost effective and enhance the well-being, because that is the thing that matters. But so I'm not going to support it, but I can certainly understand the reason why you would put it in.
I'm just trying to digest that. Councillor Scandrett.
Oh, surprise! Thank you. I'm going to support this. I think it's a really good example of a community coming and saying, hey, actually, we've thought about this. We're not anti-cycling. There's one way or the other, but what we want to do is work for our community in our area and put it where we would like it and not hinder it. And so I think this is a really good example for those naysayers and yes-sayers looking at a community and saying, actually, cycleways can work. It's really clever that it's come through from a community that's really thought hard about this and where they want it. And communities do change. There's a lot of building in that area, and they've got churches, and you can say, oh, churches only work on a Sunday. But there's actually communities around churches. So I think this is a really good example and one that we can use, that we are open-minded. We do have to change with regards to climate change and other things and pollution, but this is a really good pragmatic way to go forward. And I know it's going to be a difficult turnaround for staff, and I commend them for this. And I will be supporting this. I think it's a great example of working with the community. And for every silver birch tree that we lose, we can be planting 2 natives. Remember that as well. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McClelland.
Look, I'm not going to support this to spend another 280,000, and I know we're not making the decision to proceed with a different option today, but I don't believe in leading staff up the garden path. The ultimate end of this will be spending another $280,000 in redesign. It won't be as safe. We'll have trees cut down and yet another delay to this project. So I think it's actually a no-brainer to vote for no. And again, I want to thank the work of the hearings panel, particularly its chair, Melanie Coker. That panel considered these options at the time and considered the public popularity of the option that was approved at the time. That had the public support. That was the right decision made at the right time. So I stand behind that decision.
It's a misleading statement.
Sorry, we've got Councillor Henstock.
Check the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. As a councillor for the neighbouring ward, I'm familiar with this stretch of road, and when you cross Wairaki Road, then it comes into the Papanui ward along Aorangi Road. The majority of local residents are preferring option B, and we're not talking about just a small majority. There's actually 15 of the 16 locals who submitted through the process supported it. And then you heard from Graham today that there's been some door knocking in the area, and there's 100% of the affected locals that are preferring option B. So surely the locals really do need to be listened to and their views respected. We also heard from Graham today a bit about the parking. The parking's already at a premium. I hear the earlier comments about the 3 churches on the street providing essential social services and not just on a Sunday. So that combined with the increasing intensification occurring on the street says to me that it just doesn't make sense to remove all of that parking. And following up on what Councillor Kewen said, earlier this week we sat in a workshop and we agreed that our local voices needed to be respected. And I know that we may have been reflecting on a different but highly controversial matter. We were asked if we could do it again, what would we do differently? And it was overwhelming in the room that we said we would listen to and respect and act on the concerns of the local residents. So, we've got 100% of local residents here that are affected. So I really do think that we've got an opportunity to do it differently, and I ask you to be doing that and to consider the options that are going to come back to us in the report. It strikes me that this is a win-win-win. It's an opportunity for us to achieve the outcome that works for the cyclists and the pedestrians and the road users, so we just couldn't ignore it. And as Mark says, let's get it right. I agree we need more cycling, and you've heard me say it before, but if you want to take people on the journey with you to create sustainable change for good, you have to take people with you. and we've really got an opportunity to do that, and in doing so to restore some public confidence in our decision making, where we say we're listening to our locals and we're going to act on that. So when over 93% of those who have submitted and 100% of the affected locals say they believe there's a better alternative, then I really do think that we have to listen to that and we've got to respect that. So I will be supporting this motion.
Councillor Donovan or Templeton, please.
Be Templeton. So I guess the first big question is, who is affected by this cycleway? And it's not just the few residents who live on the street impacted here. It's a range of kids who want to bike to school or bike to Jelly Park with their parents on the weekends. It's students who want to bike to university, many of them coming from the Papanui ward. And there was overwhelming support for the current option from people who wanted to use the cycleway. And there's lots of data around cycleways. And it's if you want people to be actually using them, you need to put in cycleways that are attractive for people to use. Streets are public realm, they're for everyone to use. They are not private parking lots. And we need to make the most of the limited space that we have available. This has been through a really rigorous process with a hearings panel that listened to multiple submissions from people on the day. They read hundreds of submissions from people, considered everything at once rather than just a small group, and made a recommendation to council unanimously, and then council approved it. It would be a huge delay if we decided to have a relook now. I'd urge councillors and colleagues to reconsider, even if they have already indicated that they might vote in favour of this, and look at the potential costs to council, not only in the resource to write this report, but actually if we went ahead on the amount of resource that would be needed to actually implement this. And I note that for many years, people have railed against gold-plated cycleways that are more expensive than they need to be. And the evidence is clear that the cheapest way to build cycleways is by using road space that has already got a hard surface there, rather than digging up extra bits that don't already have that. As we go along, we're going to get more and more rain events and flood events, and it makes sense to leave as much green space as possible in these streets rather than asphalting it, because that will just increase the amount of rainwater on these streets, and residents will be then complaining to us that they don't have access to their properties because there's small amounts of flooding. So I would urge colleagues to look again, to not put this extra burden on staff when we know at the end of this process that we're not going to vote to spend an extra $200,000. We're currently going through an LTP process where every dollar is being fought over and argued over. And so to even look at spending extra money on a cycleway when people clearly want to use it the way it's currently designed just seems like nonsense.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely mindful of things being potentially too late and time frame and resource and so on and so forth, but this is infrastructure that will be there for many decades to come, so it is important to get it right. The key for me in the notice of motion and the staff response though is that it does say that what we're asking for is achievable. As for what might be too late or too costly, I really want to get a report telling us exactly that, so we make an informed decision. It is a report and options I do want to see. Also want to see our cycle network completed. The best way to keep it rocking is to have public buy-in on these projects wherever possible. When someone shows up, there's a church here, for example, when people show up to visit and, oh, there's no parks, there's a cycleway, go, oh, the bloody cycleway. Now they'll go home and next time a cycle project shows up in their neighbourhood, they might be against it altogether because of not being able to find a park. So if there is a way we can have safe infrastructure, separated cycleways, but also retain parks, that is a positive thing. As for cutting trees down, I have not met many people who like retaining silver birches.
True.
It's been a real issue, actually, the existing ones in many of my community. As for those who preferred option A, totally understandable as well, but those who preferred option A, if the options of option B or not proceeding with a cycleway was put in front of them, I imagine they would unanimously support option B. I imagine they'd be very strongly support a safe, separated cycle lane that retains parks than not having one, surely. So the more people on board with what we are doing, the better, not just for this project, but for the future of the cycle network as well, which I do think we do need to complete. And I also just want to point out a very heartwarming moment for me, which is our commitment here to the completion of this, not cancelling it altogether, but the completion of commitment of completing, and that is supported by Councillor Curran, Councillor Goff. I'm absolutely heartwarmed to see your commitment to completing a cycleway, and I think it's something we need to celebrate. So
Let's hope it stays that
I
way.
will be supporting this notice of motion.
Councillor Curran, have you done? You done? He's done. Councillor Coker.
I just wanted to say, as the chair of the hearings panel at the time, and it was a unanimous decision of a hearings panel. There were 5 of us, and we put again a lot of work into this one, where we went on site and we went to see all parts of the Northwest Arc that we were looking at, and we went to this part of Arangi Road, both ends of it. And all of the arguments for option B, which is a shared path, which is less safe for pedestrians and cyclists, were looked at again at the time, and then council voted on it. So I cannot support this because I have to back up what the hearings panel did at the time, and I actually find, I find it a bit sad that we're going to relitigate things from previous council decisions when the work is nearly ready to go ahead, to delay our increased cost. And I mean, the photo of James on the paper doesn't have any cars parked along that road hardly at all. I can't see any. So I find it very, I'm just actually disheartened completely. But anyhow, so I'm not voting for it, and I will stand by the hearings panel from term previous.
Okay, right, me. Before I begin, please be clear that from this coming out of me, this is not a beat up of the hearings panel who did the work. I believe it is a small modification to make life a lot more bearable in an area where there are a lot of car parks needed. It is a dedicated path, it's not a shared path. Some background information for you, if you're interested. The hearings panel decided to pick up staff option A, which is fine. And I have lots of contact with the residents, one of them who was here this morning. I didn't hear him, so I don't actually know what he said. The road in question is Arangi Road between Ilam and Brookside. And I was contacted by Graham. He was from one of 3 churches in this area, concerned about the vast majority of car parking was being removed on both sides of the road to accommodate the MCR. I have a photo of that Graham took for me and sent to me with cars parked back to back on both sides of the road on a Sunday outside his church only. Since the KO has just built a new complex, I don't even think it's moved into yet. It's about 34 new units would exit on one exit onto Arangi Road right next to one of the churches. The hearings panel was not aware of this at the time, so they weren't to know. So I took it upon myself to go and door knock every house on the northern side of Arangi Road that was affected, to see if the residents knew what was happening on their street. The 100% were either not aware of a cycle going there, but the ones that were said they prefer to have it on the MCR put on their 4 metre wide grass berm outside their houses. Christchurch City Council does do MCRs on berms, and I had another photo which I can't show you, but it's Picton Ave, and it's a separated MCR on Picton Ave with a footpath with about a metre of grass in between it, footpath separated for the people working. The staff have responded by providing 4 or 5 extra car parks by one of the churches, but this is still nowhere near enough. The suggestion of this notice of motion is to change or get paperwork done for change the option from A to B, which was supported by the churches at the time. But as we've just heard, for your information, there will need to be about 6 silver birch trees removed at the Jelly Park end. The Brookside Terrace end has no trees on it, so it's actually going to be better off with planted natives in there. This can only benefit the area. Silver birch trees is a curse for a lot of breathing difficulties to some people. It will also be cheaper to build and I know this, and enable the CCC to build more of this MCR before having to come to us to maybe look for funding on a possible cost blowout. Please be clear, this is not to stop construction of the MCR, just to put it in a little bit different place to make affected neighbours happy. Thank you. Your turn, Councillor Barber.
A lot of it's already been said. I used to bike down these roads going to varsity 40 years ago. It's a bit of a gift, really, the widest booms I think I've seen anywhere in the city. It's a great opportunity to use them. I think it's very pragmatic. It's a good solution. I'm glad that a lot of people are happy with this, and I think we're going to be making the right decision.
Okay, so with that, James, sorry, your reply, sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Look, I was reading the press story on my phone this morning, and my 6-year-old son, who was in bed with us actually, leaned over and he looked at and he asked if that was me in the picture and what the story was about. And I said to him, yes, that it was. And what it was about was that it was about the council maybe putting a cycleway on a road where the people who live there want it beside the footpath. And he made a point to me. He actually made 2 points to me, to be honest. The first one was he said, "Daddy, you look quite fat." All right, George.
Very observant child.
Noted. But anyway, he then went on to say, why would they put the cycleway there when the people who live there don't really want it? And I think that really just sums it up in its entirety. You know, think about the street that you live on. You know, I bet you know it pretty well. You know where people speed. You know when it's busy. You know where's the best place to cross. You know where the parking is problematic. You know where it's dangerous. Yeah, and just like you, the people of Aorangi Road know their street pretty well too. So I've spoken to about 40 or 50 residents who live locally here, and not one of them has said that they want option A. They have all said to me that they want option B, but a separate cycleway on the extremely wide berm that retains the on-street parking. 424 submissions were received on this. 16 of those submissions were said to be from people who lived here. 15 of those 16 said they opposed option A and wanted option B. That's 93.75% of the submitters who live on this road. And then 100% of the people who live on this section of road voluntarily signed a petition to say that they want option B. They're not opposed to a cycleway. They just want to have one that is appropriately designed for what will quite literally be on their doorstep. Now, I would strongly urge you to support this notice of motion. It's just about asking staff to look into what the process would be to construct the cycleway that the locals and the people who live on this road actually want. Some of the problematic trees that are currently damaging this infrastructure would have to be replaced with option B, but as per our own council tree policy, for each of those trees felled, they will be replaced by 2 more trees. So by supporting the local community, you'll also be increasing the overall tree canopy cover for the city. Look, you all know what it feels like to sit here and listen to government say that Wellington knows best, and they ignore the local and local democracy. And I just think, right now, today, this is up to us. Do we want to empower the locals? Well, I would say listen to what your mayor's just said. Please listen to the local councillor for the area. Listen to the local community board for the area. And most importantly, please listen to the 100% of the locals who know their road. Empower them and let them have ownership in a cycleway design that works for them.
Rightio. So with that, I'll put the motion.
Can we vote separately on item 3, please?
Sorry, it's all one notice of motion. So what's...
Well, I'm certainly coming to the completion of the Norway Stark. I don't want to vote against that.
Oh, you can abstain. It's quite simple. Well, Katie will write that down somewhere along the line, will you? Yeah, good. Okay. So, all those in favour? Aye. Against? That's
Can we have a
carried.
division then, please?
No.
Division, do a division.
Okay,
It's your motion.
Yeah.
Okay, division. Sorry, Katie. I know you've got better things to do with your life.
She lives to be here.
Not 5 o'clock yet.
Alright, so we will have a division on the notice of motion. So we'll vote on recommendations 1 through 3 in their entirety. If you would like to vote against or for 3 in particular, let me know and I'll have that noted in a minute.
Sorry, I didn't hear what.
So we'll vote on recommendations 1 through 3 in their entirety. Yep, by division. If your vote on number 3 differs from your vote from number 1 and 2, I can note that down so it's recorded in the minutes.
So you say that when you vote.
Yes, that's fine. Yeah. The mayor.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Cotter.
No and yes for 3.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No and yes for 3.
Councillor Coker. No. Councillor Fields.
No, and yes for 3.
Councillor Donovan.
No and yes to 3.
Councillor Henstock.
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Goff.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson's abstention. Yep. Councillor Kuhn. Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Councillor Barber.
Yes.
Councillor McClellan.
No for listening to the people.
Councillor Scandrett.
Yes.
And Councillor Templeton.
No, but yes for 3.
That's 9-4,
I look forward to seeing on Chris Lynch's Facebook page.
7 against.
That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, and now the last play of the day.
Happy to move.